creatine monohydrate, which is the most basic form available on the market, is still the one that you need. There can be a million different types created to try and speed up absorption, to try and reduce water retention, to try and increase some other factor of the benefits of creatine. But ultimately, creatine monohydrate is still the one that's closest to 100% absorbed, and it still provides all the benefits, if not more, of anything that's bound to another particle to create some other effect. It's pure, is what I'm saying. And purity is important when it comes to something like this, because when you pay for something, you want the maximal you want the maximum return from that thing. So creatine monohydrate is creatine. It's nothing else. It doesn't come bound to something that's meant to do something else, and therefore reduce the amount of creatine that's within the part itself and within the scoop that you're going to put in your shake, and B, reduce the absorption ratio of the creatine itself. So creatine monohydrate, still the king. Why do supplement companies make more? Why does any retail company put out more products? Because creatine monohydrate no longer makes them that much money. This has saturated the market so absolutely that they cannot, not one of them can put out creatine monohydrate for $50 anymore for a month, because there's another guy that's willing to do it for 10. And that's a very valid point about creatine monohydrate and other forms of creatine, is that this one's still the cheapest by far. You can get, I think I got 2 pots of this for $20-something, and they last way more than a month each. Like way more than a month. How many? This has got 80 servings of 5 grams each. So, what's that? Nearly 3 months if you're taking it every day. So to think that a pre-workout, let's grab a pre-workout. Let's grab this pre-workout. A pre-workout like this one costs you whatever, $40, $50 for, and they usually have 20 servings in them, so you get through a month. You could get 6 months or more of the same of creatine use. And creatine's probably more useful than most of the other things that are in pre-workouts. Now, that brings me to when to take creatine. So creatine doesn't work like a pre-workout. You'll find it in a lot of pre-workouts, and I'll tell you why that is. That's because the supplement company want to bulk out their pre-workout with something that is proven, creatine, and usually with fancy named creatine, like creatine nitrate and all this business, and saying that this is the best creatine ever and it's fast absorbed and blah 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 blah. Now, yes, if it's pre-workout, you want it to be quickly absorbed, but no, you don't need it in your pre-workout, and it's just taking up room, and it's a really cheap ingredient. So the industry just shoves it in their pre-workout, throws you a bunch of science saying creatine works and that this is the best creatine ever, and away you go. The way creatine actually works in your body, and incidentally, this is the same as beta-alanine, so if you ever want to discuss this, or I'll probably do a video on beta-alanine, or there's articles on the website to look at, so go ahead and do that. Creatine actually saturates your cells, so it builds up. Hence why back in the day people used to do a loading phase, which was 20 to 25 grams a day for 5 days, and then you'd go on to maintenance dose. Now that 20 to 25 grams per day for the first 5 days was to saturate your muscle tissue and your heart, your cells basically with phosphocreatine, and then the maintenance, so that you'd basically get the maximum amount in your body possible, and then the maintenance dose thereafter was about 5 grams, I think. 3 to 5 grams was what most people did, and that's just to keep topping it up, because you probably can't use much more than 5 grams a day. The other way to use creatine is to not load it, because you don't need to, but use maybe 5 to 6 grams a day, and over time what you'll be left with like a bit of creatine change at the end of the day. So say you use 3 in your workout, arbitrarily, then you'll be left with 2, and then your additional 5 that you take with your post-workout shake or whenever in the day is going to add up to 7, and then that will happen, in perpetuum. So ultimately you'll end up with a saturated muscle tissue anyway. It'll just take a bit longer. What that does, though, is that reduces the water retention problem that everyone freaks out about. And I've even heard the water retention problem be referred to as like a false positive in terms of muscle mass addition over XYZ amount of time. So people think, I've heard someone say creatine is useless. All it does is make you retain water, and that's the additional weight that you make over the first 5 weeks of supplementation. So if you put on 10 pounds, 12 pounds, even in the first few weeks, the argument is this isn't muscle tissue, it's just water. That's not true. So yes, creatine phosphate creates a gradient, draws water into cells. So yes, it helps bring water into muscle tissue, but there's no way that it accounts for all of the potential, for all of the mass gain in the first, say, just let's take 12 weeks of supplementation. That water retention is actually dependent on you as well. Now, a lot of people see it as a negative because they want to put 6-pack abs and they want to look like vascular and dry and completely ripped or shredded or whatever the term is. But you've got to weigh up whether you want the performance aspect of creatine, which can help you add pounds and pounds of muscle tissue over a few months period, compared to not taking creatine. Or you go, I want to look on a daily basis, I want to look as shredded as possible. The problem with this option, this probably originates from the social media sort of bullshitty world that pro bodybuilders and whatever put out, where they look like fucking ripped constantly, and it's not reality, because what they're doing is to get photo ready in that day, in that minute, sorry, is to be essentially dehydrated. Because if you're drinking your gallon of water a day or whatever, 3 liters of water a day, you won't look completely shredded constantly anyway. Yes, there are people with 6-packs all the time. Yes, that can be achieved with creatine as well. So just don't make the decision, I don't like the water retention idea, I want to look as lean as possible, so I'm going to abstain from using creatine. At least don't do it all year round. Maybe if you're going to cycle it off for summer because you just want that extra, tiny bit of definition, then do so like that. But for the majority of your year, you want to be using creatine because it has extremely proven, time and time again, results for strength and secondarily muscle mass growth benefits. So the upshot of the when to take it and how to take it is there is no time to take it. Certainly not pre-workout. If you've taken it the night, before you go to bed with a casein protein shake, it's going to be in your system ready because it builds up. It's not something that you take and then burn off. You can do it like that. And that's the other option for the people who don't want to, have a reservoir of creatine phosphate in the body for some unknown reason, is you can buy a pre-workout supplement. Have I got one around with creatine in it? No, but take APS Mesomorph, which has quite, out of its few grams of relevant dosage, or the scoop, it contains a bunch of creatine, different types. If it's the only creatine you're going to get, then sure, take a pre-workout with creatine in it. It's not a waste of time at all. what I was saying earlier was that it's just a little bit of an economic, fudgery sort of method that the companies use to fill out the formula with something as cheap as creatine monohydrate and still charge you premium prices for the pre-workout formula. So that's what I'll say is, if it's the only time you're going to use creatine, then sure, use it in a pre-workout, but you may as well buy this super cheap, go and get a pre-workout that doesn't contain creatine and contains other stuff that's actually useful in a short period of time, such as 15 minutes after you take it, when you go to do your workout. That's when you want your pre-workout ingredients to kick in and be useful. Pre-workouts always have beta-alanine, but beta-alanine works the same way creatine does. You build it up in your system over time. So you can either take it separately or with a pre-workout or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Either way, what I'm saying is, don't waste your money on something that contains creatine if what you really want is a bunch of pre-workout ingredients that are going to be useful in the next 2 hours.